In the far corner of the galaxy, stars burned cold and bright. Between them floated worlds filled with life, beauty, and danger. The Union of Worlds had kept peace for many years. But now that peace was breaking, a great threat had appeared from deep space. They called it the Black Swarm. No one knew where it came from. The swarm did not speak. It did not offer peace. It only destroyed. One by one, planets fell, cities vanished, moons turned dark. Even the strongest fleets could not stop the black ships that moved like shadows. The Union grew afraid. The people waited for their leaders to act. At the center of the Union, on the royal world of Galador, lived the High King. His name was old and long, but the people simply called him the King. He had ruled for more than 100 years. His skin was silver and his eyes glowed blue. He was wise and strong, but age was now heavy on his shoulders. The king called a meeting of all leaders. From every world they came, princesses and princes, warlords and thinkers, all gathered in the great hall. The king stood before them, leaning on his staff, and gave a new law. If we are to live, we must unite, not just with words, but with family. 3 of our most powerful worlds must join in marriage. This will create a bond no enemy can break. Gasps filled the hall. Leaders looked at one another with wide eyes. Marrying across planets was rare. Marrying into 3 at once had never been done. The king raised his hand for silence. We do not have time for fear. I have already chosen the 3 worlds, and I have chosen the one who will marry their princesses. He is not a prince. He is not a general. He is not even from this part of space. He is from a small planet called Earth. His name is Tarn. No one had heard of Tarn. Few had even heard of Earth. It was far, quiet, and poor. A farming world with no armies, no great machines, and no royal blood. Many leaders protested. Some laughed. Others grew angry. But the king stood firm. You may not know his name, but I have seen his heart. I have watched him live, not through power, but through care. He grows life from dirt. He fixes broken machines with nothing but his hands. He speaks gently, but works without rest. He has no throne, but he holds more peace in his mind than any of us. The hall was silent. The king looked at 3 princesses seated high above the others. Princess Vela of the Fire Moons, Princess Lenari of the Water Towers, Princess Kale of the Winded Peaks. You are chosen. You will marry this human. It is my will. It is the only way. The 3 princesses stared down, each one different, each one strong. None of them spoke. Far away, on the green hills of Earth, Tarn was planting seeds when the sky opened. A silver ship landed near his field. He stood, wiping his hands on his shirt, and watched as strange people stepped out. Tarn of Earth, said the lead voice, a tall figure in white armor. By the order of the High King of the Union, you are called to serve the galaxy? Tarn blinked. I am just a farmer. Not anymore, the voice said. You are to marry 3 princesses and save us all. Tarn thought they were joking, but they were not. Soon, he was on the ship, flying past the moon, past the stars, into a place he had only seen in dreams. His eyes grew wide with each new world. Floating towers, glowing rivers, ships like birds and fish in space. When he reached Galador, the royal guards took him to the palace. It was tall as a mountain, shining like glass in the sun. Inside, everything was quiet and grand. Walls moved like water. Lights hummed like music. The king met him in the Garden of Stars. The old man smiled. Tarn, he said, I know this is strange, but I believe in you. I do not know how to speak to princesses, Tarn said. You do not need to speak to them as royalty, the king said. Speak to them as people. Be yourself. That is why I chose you. Later, Tarn was brought before the 3 princesses. Vela stood proud, her hair glowing like fire. Her eyes burned with challenge. Lunari stood calm, her dress flowing like water. She looked at Tarn with quiet doubt. Kale stood apart, her feet not touching the ground. Wind moved through her cloak. She did not speak. They looked at Tarn, and Tarn looked back. He bowed low. I do not know how to be a prince, he said, but I know how to care for what grows. I will not force you to marry me, But if there is work to be done, I will do it. Vel crossed her arms. You are small for a hero. Lunari tilted her head. You smell of earth. Kale said nothing. Her eyes studied him like a puzzle. The room was silent. Then Vela spoke again. If you want our hands, you must prove your worth. You must face 3 trials. One on each of our worlds. Do you accept? Tarn nodded. I do. And so, the journey began. Not with war, not with fire, but with a simple man standing before 3 stars. Tarn had never stood on a world like Galador before. Its skies were purple in the morning and gold at night. The stars danced in patterns, and trees grew with glowing leaves. Everything felt too large, too clean, too quiet for a farmer from Earth. But Tarn did not run away. He had promised to try, and so he stayed. The king gave him a simple room in the palace. It had no servants and no golden bed, only a small garden outside. Tarn liked that garden. He worked the soil with his own hands, planting seeds brought from Earth. He wanted something to grow while he was there. Each day, people passed him and stared. Some laughed, some whispered. A few even looked angry. To them, he was no hero, just a farmer, a man from a forgotten planet. Tarn did not mind. He had seen the same looks before, back home, when he was poor and quiet. He had learned not to answer with words but with action. One morning, a guard came to his door. He wore armor shaped like silver wings. The princesses will speak with you, the guard said. Follow me. Tarn followed him, through long halls made of light and stone. The air smelled like flowers and rain. At last, they reached a wide room where the princesses stood waiting. Vela, princess of the fire moons, stood by a window. The light made her red cloak shine. Lunari, princess of the water towers, sat near a fountain. Her hair flowed like waves. Kale, princess of the winded peaks, stood on a high step. Wind curled around her feet. Vela spoke first. We have agreed. You may try the trials, but we will not help you. If you fail, the marriage will not happen. Tarn nodded. I understand. Lunari stood. The first trial will be mine. You will come to my world and face the tide. Kale did not speak, but her eyes followed him closely. That same day, a ship took Tarn to Lunari's world, Neria. It was a water world. Oceans covered almost everything. Cities floated on the waves, held by long towers that reached deep into the sea. As the ship landed on one of the towers, Lunari stood beside him. My world is sick, she said. A black poison spreads in the water. Our machines cannot stop it. We tried everything. Many have given up. Tarn looked out at the sea. It was dark near the horizon. Fish floated belly up in the waves. Take me to where it started. Tarn said. Lunari raised an eyebrow. You are not a healer. What will you do? I will look. That is how learning begins. Lunari took him deep into the sea. They were suits that allowed them to breathe underwater. The current was strong, and the light grew dim. At last, they reached the ocean floor. Tarn saw strange black roots spreading from broken machines. Old mining tools lay there, long forgotten. This is the cause, Tarn said. These machines leaked something bad. You left them here, and they began to rot. Lunari looked surprised. We thought the sea would clean itself. Even the sea has a limit, Tarn said. He worked for many hours, helping the divers lift the old machines. He showed them how to trap the poison with simple tools made from sea plants and rock. Powder. He used knowledge from Earth, from farming, from cleaning water in dry lands. It took many days, but soon the water near the tower began to clear. Fish returned. The waves felt alive again. Lunari watched all of it. She did not speak much, but her eyes grew softer when they returned to Galador. She walked beside Tarn instead of fast-checked. The star sparrow floated quietly through deep space. Kai sat near the main controls, watching the star map. Ryan was resting again, her strength slowly returning. The ship moved gently toward the nearest trade route, where help might be found. Kai wanted to fix her ship and help her reach safety. He had already begun scanning the frozen moon to see if the parts could be recovered. Her crashed ship still held technology that might be useful. It was risky, but he knew she could not travel far without her ship's core crystal. The next morning's cycle, Kai returned to Dare in a slow descent. He landed on a clear patch near the crash site. The broken alien ship was still half buried in ice. Smoke no longer rose, but it stood like a fallen beast, silent and cold. Kai stepped out with his tools. He moved fast, working through the snow, and twisted. The days passed quickly after Tarn's second trial. He had returned from the water world of Neria, where he helped clean the poisoned oceans and earned the respect of Princess Lenari. Now, he waited for the next challenge, the trial of Princess Kale. Kale was the quietest of the three princesses. She often stood near windows or on high towers, watching the sky. She spoke little and only when needed. Even her voice sounded like the wine, soft, cold, and distant. Tarn had tried to talk to her many times, but she answered with few words or silent nods. Still, he noticed that she listened. She watched closely when he spoke with others. She even walked near the garden he had planted outside his room. One evening, Kale finally came to him. "We leave tomorrow," she said. Tier and looked up from his garden. "To your world," she nodded. "The winded peaks. What is the trial?" Kale looked at the sky. "You will know when we arrive." The next morning, a special ship arrived to take them. It was shaped like a bird with long wings. It flew fast and smooth, with no sound. Kale sat in silence for most of the journey. Tarn sat beside her, watching the stars pass by. After hours of flight, they reached Kel's world, known as Erin. It had no oceans, no forests. It was a world of sky and stone. Giant floating islands hung in the air, connected by thin bridges. The wind never stopped blowing. It whispered, sang, and sometimes screamed. Tarn stepped out of the ship and held onto a rail. The wind pulled at his clothes and hair. "How do people live here?" he asked. With balance, Kale answered, "Those who fight the wind fall." They walked together to one of the floating cities. It was built into the side of a great cliff that hung in the air. Like a mountain turned sideways, homes were carved into the stone. Tunnels ran along the rock. People moved with care, never rushing. Kale led Tarn into a large hall where elders sat in a circle. One of them stood. "Princess Kale brings the human. Is he ready?" Kale nodded. "Yes." The elder turned to Tarn. "You will enter the City of Echoes. For many years, our people have lost contact with it. Those who enter do not return. We fear the wind spirits have turned dark." "Wind spirits?" Tarn asked. "Voices," Kale said. "We once used the winds to carry thoughts across great distance. But now, the winds speak in strange ways. People become lost inside their minds." Tarn took a breath. "Then I will go." A few hours later, they stood before a wide bridge leading to a far island. The bridge was narrow and moved with the wind. Beyond it stood the quiet city. Its towers leaned and its lights flickered. Kale placed a small crystal in Tarn's hand. "This will let me hear your voice. Speak to me, even if you are alone." Tarn nodded and stepped onto the bridge. The wind howled around him, but he moved. Carefully, he remembered Kel's words: balance, not force. He kept his steps light and steady. Soon he reached the City of Echoes. It was empty. No voices, no people. Only wind moving through empty streets. He walked slowly, calling out, but no one answered. Then he began to hear things. Whispers. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but the sounds formed words. "You are not worthy. You are alone. You will fail." Tarn stopped. The air was cold. His heart beat faster. The voices sounded like his own thoughts, but twisted. Doubt and fear began to grow. He reached for the crystal Kale gave him. "Kale," he said. "Can you hear me?" Her voice came softly. "I hear you. Keep speaking." "The wind, it speaks. But the words are wrong. They try to confuse me. Do not believe them. They are not real. The city holds old memories. It repeats pain." Tarn closed his eyes. He thought of his garden. The soil, the sun, the quiet sound of plants growing. He thought of Vela's fire, Linari's water, and Kel's wind. He thought of Earth. Then he opened his eyes and kept walking. He reached a tower in the center of the city. There, he found a group of people. They were alive but sitting in silence. Their eyes were open, but they did not move. Their minds were trapped. Tarn looked around and saw a large machine, broken and sparking. It had once sent thoughts across the wind, but now it filled the air with broken voices. He moved to the machine and began to work. He used simple tools, wires, and power cells. His hands moved with calm and care. He spoke as he worked, letting his voice join the wind. I am not afraid. I am not alone. I have work to do. Slowly, the machine stopped sparking. The wind grew quieter. The whispers faded. The people around him blinked. One by one, they stood. Their eyes cleared. Back on the floating city, Kale heard his voice through the crystal. It is done, Tarn said. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, she smiled. When Tarn returned, the elders welcomed him with quiet nods. Kale stood beside him and spoke to the people. This man, from a far world, faced the voices of fear. He walked through them with a steady heart. Let all know he is no longer just a guest. He is one of us. That night, Kale stood with Tarn. On a high balcony, you spoke to the wind, she said. I listened first, Tarn answered. She looked at him with calm eyes. You passed my trial. You passed all of them. Tarn looked out at the stars. But the real danger has not passed. Kale nodded. I know. I feel it in the wind. Something dark moves through the sky, far away. In deep space, a small scout ship floated lifeless. Its last message was never heard. A shadow passed by, large and silent. The black swarm was coming, and it was closer than anyone knew. The palace on Galador stood high above the shining city. Its towers touched the sky. Its walls were lined with crystal and light. For many years, it was a place of peace and wisdom. But now, something had changed. Dark news spread across the Union. A star system had gone silent. Then another. No signal. No trade. No light. The leaders of the Union gathered again in the Great Hall, their faces full of fear and worry. The black swarm had returned. It moved fast, without warning. Ships vanished. Satellites were destroyed. Even strong planets with great armies were falling. No one knew how to stop it. No one knew where it would strike next. Inside the palace, Tarn walked through the long halls. He had passed all 3 trials. He had helped the people of fire, water, and wind. But he was still only a farmer too many. Some whispered that he had no place in the royal court. Others said the princesses only followed the king's will. But Tarn did not care about voices in the shadows. He only cared about the truth. And the truth was this: war was coming. He walked into the meeting chamber where Princess Vela, Linari, and Kale stood together. They had changed in these last weeks. They no longer stood as strangers. They stood as leaders. Proud and united. Vela turned to Tarn. The generals are afraid. They want to hide behind shields and moons, Linari added. They argue but take no action. They forget that waiting will not stop the swarm. Kale looked toward the sky. And the king is weaker now. He has not spoken in 3 days. Tarn's heart sank. He had not seen the king since he returned from Kel's world. The old ruler had grown silent. Some said he was ill. Others feared he would not rise again. We must do something, Tarn said. The swarm will not stop. We must prepare. Vela nodded. We need to speak to the people. All of them, not just the leaders. Linari's voice was calm but firm. Then we must go beyond the court, Kale whispered. We must speak with the crown. They went together to the king's chambers. The guards let them pass. Inside, the king lay on a soft bed, his face pale, his breath slow. His silver skin had faded to gray. Tarn stepped forward. He took the king's hand gently. My king, he said, your people need your voice. The king opened his eyes slowly. He looked at Tarn with a weak smile. You have done well, farmer of earth, he whispered. But my time is ending. No. Tarn said, we need your strength. The king shook his head. No, you need your own. The law I gave was not just for peace. It was for hope. You have shown us what hope looks like. He turned his eyes to the princesses. You must lead. Now, together, as one. His hand grew still. the king had passed outside the chamber, the sky turned darker. Soon, the news spread through the palace. The king was dead. The great bell rang. People gathered in silence. The lights of Galador dimmed. Mourning began. But not everyone mourned. Some rulers from far planets saw this moment as a chance to rise. In secret, they spoke of breaking the law of union. They questioned Tarn's place. Some called him a mistake. Others feared his growing bond with the princesses. Inside the High Council, one elder spoke with sharp words. This human has no blood. Of the stars, why should we follow him? Another added, he is not of fire, water, or wind. He is not one of us. The room grew tense. Tarn stood before them without anger. I never asked to rule, he said. I only did what was needed. Princess Vela stepped forward. He faced my world's fires and saved my people. Princess Lenari followed. He healed the poisoned waters and asked for nothing in return. Princess Kale spoke last. He calmed the winds of fear. He walked through silence with a brave heart. The council was silent. Then Tarn said, if any of you can look the people in the eyes and say you have done more, then take the crown. But if not, then help us prepare for war. One by one, heads lowered. No one spoke. At that moment, alarms rang across the palace. The Black Swarm had arrived. A large fleet had entered the edge of the Union space. Their ships were like shadows, dark, cold, and silent. They moved without sound, destroying everything in their path. Panic spread through the halls. Tarn turned to the princesses. We need to move now. The people must see that they are not alone. Vela called for her fire fleet. Lunari sent word to her sea warriors. Kale opened the sky paths for her wind riders, and Tarn stood in the middle of them all. He looked up at the stars and whispered to himself, we will not run. The next day, a message was sent across all worlds. It showed Tarn standing beside the three princesses. Behind them, the flags of fire, water, wind, and earth flew together. Tarn spoke clearly, his voice reaching every corner of the Union. The king is gone, but his dream lives. We do not stand as one world, but as many. We do not fight for power. We fight for each other. The swarm has taken much from us, but it will take no more. We are the Union. We are ready. Across the stars, people listened, and they began to believe. The stars above Galador no longer looked peaceful. They were filled with warning lights, moving ships, and quiet fear. The Black Swarm was close, and time was running out. But something had changed. For the first time in many years, the Union of Worlds had stopped arguing. The leaders had stopped hiding. The message from Tarn and the three princesses had reached every planet, station, and moon. It gave people a reason to hope again. Inside the palace, Tarn stood with Vela, Lunari, and Kale. Round them, plans were being drawn. Maps covered the walls. Lights blinked on large screens. Messages came in from many planets. Fleets were moving, soldiers were preparing, and defenses were rising. But it would not be enough. The Black Swarm did not fight like any known enemy. Their ships did not need fuel. Their minds did not speak. They did not leave survivors. They moved like smoke, spreading fast and striking hard. Vela slammed her fist on the table. We cannot stop them with shields alone. Lunari nodded. We must strike first. Kale spoke softly. We must fight together. One mistake, and we fall. Tarn listened to them. Then he stepped forward. I have an idea, he said. But it is not like your normal battle plans. The generals turned toward him. Some frowned. Some looked curious. Tarn spoke with calm, clear words. When I was a farmer, I faced many storms. I could not stop the sky. I could not move the earth. But I learned one thing. If you break the path of the storm, it becomes weak. He pointed to the star map. The swarm moves like one dark cloud. It eats everything in its way. But it has to pass through space lanes. If we block those lanes, force it to split, we can weaken it. One of the generals asked, and who will lead these attacks? Vela stepped forward. I will take the fire fleet. We will hold the front line and draw their attention, Lunari said. My ships will move under the waves of the gas planet Urine. We will rise when the swarm is near and strike from below, Kale said. I will lead the Wind Riders through the nebula. Paths, we will move faster than they expect and hit their middle. The room was silent. Then Tarn said, and I will go to the broken moon of Varnus. I saw something there during my trial. It holds the last light crystal from the king's core. I believe it can be used to break the swarm's signal. A young officer stepped forward. That is too dangerous. The swarm already took part of that system. Tarn nodded. I know. That's why I must go. Alone, if needed. The three princesses looked at him. They had faced trials with him. They had seen his heart. None of them wanted him to walk into danger alone, Vela said. If you go, I go, Linari added. We stand as one. Always, Kale whispered. The wind will follow you. Tarn smiled. Then we go together. The next day, the Union moved across the stars. Ships left their hangars. Fleets formed lines. Lights flashed. Weapons were armed. On every planet, people looked up to the sky. Some were afraid. Others stood ready. The battle had begun. Near the gas giant Urine, Linari's water fleet rose from the deep clouds and caught the swarm by surprise. Energy waves struck the black ships. For the first time, the swarm turned back. Near the burning star line, Vela's fire fleet blocked the path. Her ships moved in fast waves. Burning bright, they fought hard and brave. The sky shook with fire dotting. The dark nebula, Kale flew with her Wind Riders. Their ships danced between space winds and star dust. They moved like ghosts. Striking at the swarm's center, the enemy tried to follow, but failed. And on the broken moon of Varnus, Tarn and the three princesses landed on sharp rocks under a silent sky. The moon had no air, no life. Only dust, wind, and one hidden cave. Inside the cave, the last crystal of the king glowed faintly. It pulsed like a weak heart. Tarn stepped forward and placed his hand on it. The crystal lit up. A deep sound filled the air. Suddenly, the swarm felt it. The black ships turned. Some began to shake. Others froze. Tarn looked at the crystal. It was showing memories from the past. The first days of the Union, the voice of the king, the dreams of peace, the hope of many worlds. Kale placed her hand beside his. Linari followed. Then, Vela. The crystal glowed brighter. A pulse of light shot out across the stars. Everywhere the swarm touched, something changed. The black ships stopped moving. Their dark shells cracked. Inside, they were not machines. They were minds trapped in metal. Long ago, they were part of the stars. Now they were free. The fleets of the Union watched as the swarm stopped. Some ships exploded. Others fell slowly. The sky grew quiet. On the broken moon, Tarn and the princesses stood in silence. They had won, not just with fire or water or wind, but with unity. The Union of Four. The stars above Galador no longer looked peaceful. They were filled with warning lights, moving ships, and quiet fear. The black swarm was close, and time was running out. But something had changed. For the first time in many years, the Union of Worlds had stopped arguing. The leaders had stopped hiding. The message from Tarn and the three princesses had reached every planet, station, and moon. It gave people a reason to hope again. Inside the palace, Tarn stood with Vela, Linari, and Kale. Round them, plans were being drawn. Maps covered the walls. Lights blinked on large screens. Messages came in from many planets. Fleets were moving, soldiers were preparing, and defenses were rising. But it would not be enough. The Black Swarm did not fight like any known enemy. Their ships did not need fuel. Their minds did not speak. They did not leave survivors. They moved like smoke, spreading fast and striking hard. Vela slammed her fist on the table. We cannot stop them with shields alone. Linari nodded. We must strike first. Kale spoke softly. We must fight together. One mistake, and we fall. Tarn listened to them. Then he stepped forward. I have an idea, he said. But it is not like your normal battle plans. The generals turned toward him. Some frowned. Some looked curious. Tarn spoke with calm, clear words. When I was a farmer, I faced many storms. I could not stop the sky. I could not move the earth. But I learned one thing. If you break the path of the storm, it becomes weak. He pointed to the star map. The swarm moves like one dark cloud. It eats everything in its way, but it has to pass through space lanes. If we block those lanes, force it to split, we can weaken it. One of the generals asked, and who will lead these attacks? Vela stepped forward. I will take the fire fleet. We will hold the front line and draw their attention, Lunari said. My ships will move under the waves of the gas planet Urine. We will rise when the swarm is near and strike from below, Kale said. I will lead the wind riders through the nebula. Puffs, we will move faster than they expect and hit their middle. The room was silent. Then Tarn said, and I will go to the broken moon of Varnus. I saw something there during my trial. It holds the last light crystal from the king's core. I believe it can be used to break the swarm's signal. A young officer stepped forward. That is too dangerous. The swarm already took part of that system. Tarn nodded. I know. That's why I must go. Alone, if needed. The three princesses looked at him. They had faced trials with him. They had seen his heart. None of them wanted him to walk into danger alone, Vela said. If you go, I go. Lunari added. We stand as one. Always, Kale whispered. The wind will follow you. Tarn smiled. Then we go together. The next day, the Union moved across the stars. Ships left their hangars. Fleets formed lines. Lights flashed. Weapons were armed. On every planet, people looked up to the sky. Some were afraid. Others stood ready. The battle had begun. Near the gas giant Urine, Lunari's war fleet rose from the deep clouds and caught the swarm by surprise. Energy waves struck the black ships. For the first time, the swarm turned back. Near the burning star line, Vela's fire fleet blocked the path. Her ships moved in fast waves. Burning bright, they fought hard and brave. The sky shook with fire dotting. The dark nebula, Kale flew with her wind riders. Their ships danced between space winds and star dust. They moved like ghosts. Striking at the swarm's center, the enemy tried to follow, but failed. And on the broken moon of Varnus, Tarn and the three princesses landed on sharp rocks under a silent sky. The moon had no air, no life, only dust, wind, and one hidden cave. Inside the cave, the last crystal of the king glowed faintly. It pulsed like a weak heart. Tarn stepped forward and placed his hand on it. The crystal lit up. A deep sound filled the air. Suddenly, the swarm felt it. The black ships turned. Some began to shake. Others froze. Tarn looked at the crystal. It was showing memories from the past. The first days of the Union, the voice of the king, the dreams of peace, the hope of many worlds. Kale placed her hand beside his. Lunari followed. Then, Vela. The crystal glowed brighter. A pulse of light shot out across the stars. Everywhere the swarm touched, something changed. The black ships stopped moving. Their dark shells cracked. Inside, they were not machines. They were minds trapped in metal. Long ago, they were part of the stars. Now they were free. The fleets of the Union watched as the swarm stopped. Some ships exploded. Others fell slowly. The sky grew quiet. On the broken moon, Tarn and the silence filled the stars. For the first time in many years, the sky was calm. No black ships moved. No planets cried for help. The black swarm was gone. The galaxy could finally breathe again. On the broken moon of Varnus, Tarn stood beside the crystal that had once held the memory of the king. The light still glowed, but softer now. The message was clear. The battle was over, and the Union had survived. Princess Vela stepped beside him. Her flame-colored eyes no longer burned with anger, but with pride. You broke their silence, she said. You gave them peace. Lunari walked forward. She touched the cracked floor gently. They were not monsters. They were lost. Kale stood behind them, looking up at the stars. The wind speaks clearly now. The darkness has passed. Tarn looked at the three princesses. They had been strangers once, proud rulers from different worlds. But now, they were more than that. They were friends. They were allies. They were family. We did this together, Tarn said. They returned to Galado or the palace. Once quiet and full of mourning, now rang with new life. Ships flew in the sky. People gathered in the great hall. Music returned. Laughter returned. Hope returned. Every world sent messages of thanks. From the sky cities of Erin to the water towers of Neria, from the fire moons of Velen to the far green fields of Earth, the people spoke one name. Tern. Not as a stranger, not as a farmer, not even as a warrior. They called him something new. He was the one who brought peace, the one who stood between three worlds, the one who did not use a sword, but a steady heart. They called him king. But Tarn did not sit on the throne. Instead, he stood in the garden he had planted beside the palace. The flowers had grown strong. The trees had taken root. Even here, where stars once ruled, the soil had learned to live again. The princesses came to him one morning. "The Union has spoken," said Vela. "They want you to lead." "We will guide beside you," Linari said. "But your voice will bring balance. You are not just Earth's son anymore," Kale whispered. "You belong to all of us now." Tarn looked at them with quiet eyes. He had never dreamed of a crown. He had never wanted power. But now, he understood something deeper. A leader was not someone who ruled from above. A true leader walked beside others, listened, and worked for peace. "I will accept," he said, "but not as a king with gold or steel. I will lead with the will of the people. I will build, not command. And I will never forget where I came from." And so, the Union crowned Tarn in the Garden of Stars. There was no gold robe, no heavy crown. He wore simple clothes and stood on soil he had planted with his own hands. The ceremony was short. The people cheered. Children from many worlds sent messages of joy. Some danced in low gravity. Others painted his name in bright colors on city walls. Farmers, workers, builders, and dreamers all stood proud, because one of their own had shown that even a small voice could change the stars. As the days passed, the Union grew stronger. New peace pots were built between the planets. Fleets once used for war now carried supplies and books. The fire moons helped light dark worlds. The water towers shared their healing seas. The winded peaks taught others how to listen to the sky. And Earth, once forgotten, became a place of learning and story. Tarn continued his work in the garden each morning. He met with leaders in the afternoon, and at night, he sat with the princesses under the stars. Each of them had found something they never expected. Vel found calm in his patience. Lunari found truth in his honesty. Kale found warmth in his silence, and Tarn found strength in their trust. Together, they led not with pride but with purpose. Then one day, a small ship came from the edge of the galaxy. It carried news. A signal had been found, faint and strange, not from the swarm, but from another unknown place. A distant light blinking in the dark. Tr read the message and smiled. "There's more out there," he said. Vela stood. "You want to go?" Linari nodded. "The stars are wide. Others may need us." Kale whispered. "Let the wind carry us forward." Tarn looked at the garden once more. The plants were tall and strong now. They would live without him. He turned to the princesses. "Then let us begin a new journey," he said. "Not for battle, but for understanding." A new ship was built, small but fast, strong but peaceful. It carried for flags. Fire, water, wind, earth. And it carried a crew of 4. A farmer. 3 princesses. In a dream. As it rose from Galador, people watched from the cities, from the fields, from the skies. They waved. They cheered, and they whispered one name. Tarn. Not just the king of the Union, but the king beyond the stars. Princesses stood in silence. They had won, not just with fire, or water, or wind, but with unity. The Union of 4.